the rain continued. It was a hard rain, a perpetual rain, a sweating and steaming rain. It was a mizzle, a downpour, a fountain, a whipping at the eyes, an undertow at the ankles. It was a rain to drown all rains and the memory of rains. It shrank men's hands into the hands of wrinkled apes. It rained a solid, glassy rain, and it never stopped. Anyway, enough of that. Let's think about nice things like the sun. Do you remember that? It's a rare bit of sun. We haven't had sun for a while. We've had constant rain. So much rain, in fact, that this is our pond, which is significantly higher than it was before, and it's flooding our patio. It's just coming through the brick. Oh God, look at that. Now, I love this pond. I've spoken about it at length in other videos. In fact, I did a whole video really just talking about the pond and how it's been in the past year that we've lived in this house. But clearly we've got to do a little bit of a better job at trying to get the water level lower. Otherwise, we're going to have real issues. What we would really like to do with this pond is get it away from the house a little bit more. Now, unfortunately, to do that, it costs an absolute fortune. We were quoted well over £15,000 to do that. And the reason is that it's very, very deep. It used to be a swimming pool, apparently, back in Victorian times or something like that. But right in the middle there, it's well over 2 meters deep. So filling all of that in, well, taking all the water out and then filling it all in isn't a trivial thing to do. But that's what we would like to do at some point. Just reduce it a bit. It'd still be nice to have a pond because it's an interesting thing for the house. You know, beautiful seeing all the wildlife and everything, the newts, the dragonflies, frogs and all that. It'd be a shame to lose it completely, but we certainly want to reduce it. Anyway, costs a fortune, but if you're a pond expert and you want to do something with us, then let me know. That would be great. We have a pump down here, which is, desperately trying to pump out some water because the overflow grate is down there somewhere. And we can't exactly remember where, but I think it's probably covered in debris, so not enough of the pond is going out to the drain. We're going to need a bigger pump. We're going to need a bigger boat. I was curious to see how much power the pump was using, so I got this plug called a Shelly. It's a smart plug, and it's got a really good app. I don't know whether you can see that, but you get a consumption graph, and it tells you how much it's using at the moment, the current voltage, and how much energy it's used over a certain time period. And you can turn it off as well if you want to. So, yeah, really good, this. I'd be tempted to get them all over the house. They're not too cheap, but they are brilliant. Anyway, what a beautiful day. Okay, I'm just going to talk about the system that we've got briefly then. Now, Heatable installed this in April last year. We've got 30 panels on the roof. That's 13.5 kilowatt array. On the side of the house, we have 2 Alpha ESS inverters and batteries. 2 5 kilowatt inverters, 2 10 kilowatt hour batteries. They're joined in parallel, which means they work together, which means we've got a 10 kilowatt inverter and 20 kilowatt hour worth of battery storage, which is a decent amount. Although, as I said in the previous video, it would be a far better amount if we didn't have electric radiators. They cost an absolute fortune, but I'm going to get into that later. I'm not going to labour it too much because, my God, every single video I talk about these radiators. But what I am going to talk about in this video is what we might get instead, because clearly they're not the best solution for heating your home. And if you're considering getting solar panels and a battery, then do get a quote from the lovely people at Heatable. You can use the codes on screen right now to get some money off. Thank you very much if you do. I'll keep this ridiculous fireplace going because I quite like the ambience. Okay, first of all, let's compare January 2025 to January 2026. We've moved in October 2024, so we've been here a few months. Winter was obviously happening and the radiators were on, and we didn't really realise, my wife didn't really realise how expensive they were to run. So bear that in mind when I talk about these figures. So in 2025, we spent £772.83 on electricity. Just 1 month, that is, 1 month. That's 3,132 kilowatt hours. In 2026, bearing in mind that now we have the solar panels and the batteries, we have used 2,440 kilowatt hours, so that cost £459.28. We also earned £8.90 for the 59 kilowatt hours that we exported back to the grid. So this year is certainly looking better because it's £313.54 less than it was last year. So that's a definite result. So why have we saved so much money? It would be lovely to say that it was the solar panels and the batteries that have saved so much, but actually that's not really the case. We've saved a lot because we've used less electricity. It's as simple as that. So the big thing really, no heating on in the conservatory this year, as I won that argument, mainly. It's actually on at the moment. Chocolino! Chocolino! Ah! It's on because my daughter and her friend are coming over later, and so they're going to use that room to do painting, whatever else. Anyway, the biggest use of energy in this house is, of course, these lovely electric radiators that we've got. So I'm always a little bit down on these radiators. I always say they're awful. And actually the radiators themselves are really good. These are Rointe radiators. They're very easy to operate. They've got a good app, or pretty good app anyway. They look good, I think. Probably one of the better radiators that I've seen. So I'm down on them, but I'm down on them because electricity in this country costs so much. Now, a gas boiler is about 85% efficient, I think. You can get much better ones these days at just over 90%, I think, but around that mark. These are 100% efficient. Every 1 kilowatt hour of electricity you use, you get 1 kilowatt hour of heating out of it. So they're pretty good, these radiators, to be honest. It's just that electricity costs a fortune. On a sunny day, it's not a big issue because the solar power will be powering the radiators. Our problem is that we haven't had a sunny day. Really just twice in 1 month, maybe. It's been rubbish. Anyway, so talking about the radiators, in January 2025, we used 2,066 kilowatt hours of energy for our radiators. This year, it was 1,451 kilowatt hours. So 615 kilowatt hours better this year for heating. The temperature was actually set a bit lower, about 18.5 to 19 degrees throughout the house. So that's obviously helped, and less conservatory heating. Talking of the conservatory, if we just dig into that, in 2025, we used 415 kilowatt hours for the conservatory in 1 month. Madness, isn't it? 2026, that was 92 kilowatt hours. And again, as I said in the previous video, Flaviana turns on the heating if we're entertaining. It's also got an anti-frost mode, so it will start up if it gets below 7 degrees. We do have some furnishings in there and everything starts to get a bit mouldy. And for all the people that tell me we should just knock it down, we get more months of usable time in the conservatory than the rubbish winter months. So it's a good space. We like it. The other big thing is that 2026 was about 1 degree milder than 2025. So obviously that helped. Also, we've got to talk about insulation. So we had cavity wall insulation put in a good few months ago. And we've also got triple and double glazing now throughout the house. So, well, apart from the conservatory. So that will have obviously helped with our heating bill enormously. It's a shame it's not easy to actually measure that, but the insulation is bound to help. So putting heating aside, it does mean that we still saved 77 kilowatt hours this year. And I've no idea why. Perhaps we charged the car a bit less. I'm not sure. Okay, let's talk about our savings from having the solar panels and the battery. We got 171 kilowatt hours of free energy. So there we go, solar power. So that's the equivalent of £50.67 at the peak rate. And then the batteries were working for 28 days in January, not 31. I'll talk about that in a minute. So 28 working days for the battery. You times that by 19.2 kilowatt hours. That's the usable battery capacity that we have. That comes to 537.6 kilowatt hours. And we saved 22.63 pence per kilowatt hour. So that comes to £121.66 that the batteries have saved us. There are efficiency losses, by the way, but I'm not going to get into all that because it starts to get a bit technical. You might be wondering how I came to that 22.63 pence per kilowatt hour. That's because the batteries were charged overnight at the cheap rate of 7 pence per kilowatt hour. So if you take the peak rate, you minus the cheap rate of 7 pence, and then that means 22.63 pence is how much we would have spent if we were using the batteries in the daytime. But because we're using the cheap electricity, we're kind of saving 22.63 pence per kilowatt hour. Hope that makes some sense. And then we exported £8.90. So altogether, the system in January saved us £181.23. More would be nice, but hey, if the sun comes out, then maybe we'll make a little bit more in February. The top day for solar in January was the 28th of January, and that was 14.2 kilowatt hours we generated with a peak of 4.74 kilowatts. The worst day we had was the 13th of January, and we just generated 0.9 kilowatt hours. 0.9 kilowatt hours. Crazy, isn't it? With 30 panels on the roof, which just shows you British winters aren't great. So I said that the batteries were just working 28 days out of 31 in January, and that's because we had 3 days of freezing nights and days, and the batteries didn't work. And I expected this because I knew that the alpha batteries that we got, they don't work very well anything under zero. They do actually work under zero sometimes, and they certainly have for us, but I don't know, maybe it's atmospherics that play a part as well, or maybe there's residual heat, I don't know. But anyway, if you were watching this and you thought, oh, I'm going to not get alpha because of that, the new ones do have an integrated battery heater. And if you're also shopping around looking at SIG Energy, for instance, Give Energy, Tesla Powerwalls, and I'm sure many others as well, they do have integrated battery heaters. Now, I said in the previous video, I was alluding to this, and what could I do to improve matters? Firstly, I could have put the batteries in the garage. Now, the reason I didn't do that is that the garage is south-facing, and it gets monumentally hot in summer, which does happen, actually, and we have far, far more boiling days than we have freezing days. So I thought, well, it's probably better to expose it to the cold than what feels like extreme heat in the garage. So what I could do is I could create a little insulated shed. I could do, I could knock something up pretty easily and quickly and fairly cheaply with just bits of plywood with some insulation slabs stuck on the inside. So I may do that, but I'm just seeing how it goes with the weather at the moment, and I'm always busy on the weekends, so I just need to find a spare time to do that. So what heating should we have? We've got 7 radiators in the house plus 1 in the conservatory, so I'm counting that really as another room. It's not really part of the house, I think. So 7 radiators and then 1 in the conservatory, and then we've got 2 bathroom heaters, towel rails. So we've got loads of different options, and thank you very much to everyone that's been commenting. The last video got a lot of comments. So here's a little thing about YouTube. If you do a video that's negative, more people click on it. Bit depressing, isn't it? That's just the human condition, I suppose. But if it was a picture of me smiling, beaming with sun, saying, hey, 0 bills, no bugger would click on it. But picture me gurning in front of a radiator, saying evil radiators or whatever the title was, you will click. Anyway, so what heating should we choose? I had loads and loads of suggestions. Firstly, infrared panels, for those who don't know, it's a very, very flat panel, and it warms you and not the air, or it warms objects and not the air. So it's a really clever form of heating, actually. And some people say that they're more efficient, but I don't know if they actually are. So I did have an infrared panel, and I reviewed it. And I wasn't really convinced by it. I just never felt like it was doing much, because I think so much with the infrared panels is predicated on how good your positioning is. That's the case for any form of heating, I suppose. But yeah, it just didn't really do anything for me. And if you bear in mind that when you're sat in the conservatory, you are generally looking out to the garden. That's where you want to face. If I had an infrared panel, the only place I could put it would be on the wall, and arguably higher up would be good. And then you're getting heat mainly on the back of your head and obviously the objects around you, but it's not going to do much. So I did test that in the conservatory. I didn't mount it on the wall, to be honest, but I did have it on the floor. And you get a lovely warmth from it. It does feel nice. It feels like a warm sunny day behind glass. That's kind of the feeling you get. So it's a lovely kind of heat, I think. But it's just, yeah, I don't know. It didn't really do anything for me. So would it be cheap to buy? Well, I don't know. It probably would be the cheapest option, in fact, of all of the different heating options. It would cost about £1,400 to replace all of our electric radiators with them. But you wouldn't want them down there because you would just be warming your feet. You would ideally want them higher up. And you can get loads of different options with infrared radiators in terms of, you can have them like glass, like mirrors, or you can have pictures and things like that. So you could have them high on the wall, but there's no way my wife would want that. I may look into it again, but I don't think it's going to happen. The other option is that you could have them mounted on the ceiling as well. So that's probably the best way of doing it. But again, you've got to get an electrician out to do all of that. So I don't think infrared panels will be for us. Air-to-air heat pump. This is something that we do have significant experience with because we had an air-to-air heat pump in the previous house. And just if you didn't know, air-to-air heat pumps are air conditioning units. And the benefit of an air conditioning unit is obviously you get cooling in the summer, which is fantastic. Certainly it was a wonderful thing at our previous house.
Oh, that's better.
Our previous house was a bungalow and it did get really, really hot. This one less so, and I don't know whether that means that this is better insulated or it's just that we don't spend quite as much time in the front, which is where the south is. In our previous house, we had big bifolds, and that used to get quite a lot of mid-afternoon sun, and the whole dining lounge area would be bathed in sun, and it would get quite hot in there, and we would end up using the cooling more often. Anyway, so we had a split system at the previous house with 4 units, I think it was, wasn't it? We had 4 units, so one in each of the 3 bedrooms, and then one that was serving the whole lounge, dining area and corridor. So that one unit was doing quite a lot of work. And that was part of the reason that my wife didn't like it. And we did a whole video about this. Yeah, again, like the infrared panels, positioning is crucial. And I'm just not convinced that that was really positioned very well because we got this feeling of hot air blowing on us quite often. And yeah, it just, my wife didn't love it. However, I've got to say it was so efficient and incredibly cheap to run. And I can't remember the bill. The January bill from 2 years ago when we were living in that house was very, very low. All thanks to that. We did have some solar panels, but it was only a 2 kilowatt array, which generated next to nothing in winter. So we would be tempted to do it here. And now you can get a government grant to get money off that. I can't remember how much that is, and I'll put it on screen. I think it's £3,500 off that. We could get a ducted system. So instead of a cassette kind of thing that you mount on the wall, you could have something that's more like what you get in a hotel room, really. And we could put it into the ceiling and do it that way. And it would be a bit neater. So it's an option. It's an option. And we are looking into it. And we are also considering putting one at least in the conservatory, because obviously the conservatory is the main issue. And I've been trying to convince my wife that that's probably the best place to dip our toe in again to the whole air-to-air system.
Chocolino. So if we were to get air conditioning in the conservatory, it would probably fit up there. And hopefully we wouldn't have to have any pipes going all the way along on the outside here, because I think we've got just enough room, because this ceiling is a bit lower than the conservatory. Hopefully there'd be just enough room to pipe it into the attic and then out the side. And then we'd have the compressor on the side of the house over there.
If we were to put it in the whole house, in our previous house, it cost about £8,500, I think, and that was without any kind of grants. So it would be a similar price here, but maybe 8 to 10. Let's adjust for inflation a little bit, probably £8,000 to £10,000 to do that here. Another option, and a lot of people told me this, storage heaters. Storage heaters, if you don't know, are radiators that are full of very, very heavy bricks. And what happens is that throughout the cheap rate during the night, it heats up those bricks and then it releases that heat slowly throughout the day. And my parents used to have storage heaters at their previous house. And then they changed it for gas central heating. And I should ask them why they did that. I think it's probably the flexibility of gas, I imagine, because storage heaters are cheap to run because you are kind of charging them up really during the night. So I don't remember the house getting cold particularly, but I'll talk to my mum and dad about it. I'll probably do a whole episode just about storage heaters, actually. I would like to. And at this house, I think it was probably storage heaters before these electric radiators were put in. So clearly the previous occupant decided to get rid of storage heaters and put in these electric radiators, even though they cost significantly more. Although it would be arguably the most sensible option for us, certainly the easiest option, a small one is about £500 new, which amazes me how expensive they are actually. So that would be about £3,500 to replace all of our existing radiators with the storage heaters. Although a channel member I talked to a lot, Mark, he did tell me that he's got one and he got it cheap on eBay. So that's a possibility for us as well if we were to do that. Possible for one or two, but I haven't seen a massive batch of them on eBay. So that's still going to be quite expensive. They're also really ugly. I mean, compared to our Rointe radiators here, they are ugly looking things. I suppose you could say they're charmingly retro. It does certainly make me remember the old days at the previous house when I was with my parents. But also, in theory, we could perhaps swap the existing radiators we've got for storage heaters ourselves, so we wouldn't have to get an electrician, possibly. But if we were spending £3,500, I'd rather put that into a heat pump, because a heat pump is, I think, a better option. But it's possible we may just get one storage heater just to see how it goes. It's fairly low risk, isn't it, just to get one? Okay, so an air-to-water heat pump. That's your traditional heat pump that most people tend to get because it's the easiest option if you've already got central heating, gas-fired central heating, you've already got radiators, you've already got plumbing. You just take out the boiler and you stick in a heat pump. There's more to it than that, but anyway, that's the rough idea. Now, because we don't have any plumbing here, that would involve actually putting in the plumbing. So that's all a lot of work and it's a lot of cost. You can get a grant from the government, that's £7,500. So that's great, that takes the price down a lot. But for us, there is still the big amount of work that's involved to actually put in plumbing where it doesn't exist already. I would love a heat pump because it's such an efficient use of electricity. Our electric radiators, as I said before, they're 100% efficient. Every 1 kilowatt hour of electricity we spend for these radiators, you get 1 kilowatt hour coming out in heat. Now with a heat pump, that 1 kilowatt hour actually comes out to 3 or 4 kilowatt hours of heat. It can be even more, in fact, if you're really lucky. So heat pumps are incredibly efficient. And when you do combine it with solar power or batteries, then that's just using energy in a very efficient way. And you're using more of your own electricity to heat. So that's a wonderful thing. So they're very, very cheap to run. As I said, the air-to-air heat pump that we had before was cheap to run. So I know how good they are, heat pumps. And I would love one here, but it is quite a lot of work to do all of that. And there's always the argument, would we ever see that money back? You'd have to live in a house really for quite a long time, probably, to get that money back. However, I love the idea of getting it, and I love the idea of making this house as eco as possible, and a heat pump is part of that. So we'll see what happens. Just to say that, obviously I've been talking about normal kind of radiators, or emitters, I think they're probably called. The other option, of course, is underfloor heating, which is by far the coziest, most lovely form of heat that I've ever experienced. I would love to do that. However, we've got concrete floors and there's a tiny bit of underlay and then there's a bit of crappy laminate. I'd love to replace all that with lovely engineered wood or something like that. So obviously you could do underfloor heating here, but then there's all the nightmare of taking off all the doors and architrave and skirting boards and changing all that, and God knows what we do in the kitchen. Anyway, so there's a lot of hassle involved, but it would be lovely. Other options, getting even crazier now, other options are a water source or a ground source. And this is still a heat pump, but it takes the heat out of the ground or out of the water. Bearing in mind, we've got a massive pond. A traditional heat pump is cheaper because there are more of them, and you're getting the heat out of the air. With a ground source or water source, you're getting it obviously out of the ground or the water, and the temperatures remain better throughout the year, as I understand it. So that means it's more efficient, that makes it cheaper to run, but there's a larger upfront cost. They're all the options. We may do a combination as funds allow, perhaps air-to-air in the conservatory, storage heater in the hallway. I don't know. Someone did comment saying that having a radiator in the conservatory is against building regulations. I did look into this, but the conservatory is classed as an outside space and it's not central heating. It's not connected to the central heating, so I think it's fine. If it's a separate radiator that's independently controlled, then that's all fine. So even if we did get a heat pump, even if we did get air to water, we would probably be best to consider the conservatory separate anyway. So I think air conditioning unit in there might make more sense. Also, because I think the whole blowing air thing from a height would probably just work and feel better in there. And of course you get cooling in summer if you need it. This isn't south facing, by the way, this conservatory. It never gets too hot for me, really. Oh, and also if we were to put an air conditioning unit in there, then you get the dehumidifying as well, because that's what you get in air conditioning units. So that would work really well because that is quite a damp space. Right, bit of a change of scenery, no fake fireplace. In the background, the Canon overheated, so I thought might as well go into the conservatory since the heating is on. Right, so I've got some comments from the previous video. So loads of you commented, and here are some of my favourite ones. Firstly, Isaac Hunt, I've got to say that correctly, haven't I? Isaac Hunt has written a lot of comments. He's very angry, or seems very angry anyway. He is disturbed by the idea of putting £19,000 into solar panels and batteries instead of just putting it into a high yield investment account instead. He keeps talking about the stocks and shares and S&P 500 and all the rest of it. So he says that he gets lots of dividends and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, fair enough. I mean, if you do have a massive chunk of money and you want to make money, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? If you've got loads of money in the bank and you want to make some money, then yes, go for it. Do all of that kind of stuff. I'm certainly not going to offer any kind of investment advice because I'm not very good with finances, really. So for me, it's more about being energy independent, I suppose. And I like not using fossil fuels. And also the solar batteries, they do start paying you back the moment you put it on the house. And it's an investment. That's the big thing. It's an investment into the house. And I like that. It's like, I bet he wouldn't be bothered if I said that I was spending 19 grand on a kitchen. A lot of people don't seem to care too much, right? When you talk about, oh yeah, doing up a kitchen or whatever, it's just expected. Yeah, fine, you're doing up your kitchen to make your house better. Well, I've got the solar panels and the batteries to make the house better and for energy independence because energy bills will continue to rise. So yeah, I just like all of that. But each to their own. For me, I just like the fact that we're generating and using our own electricity. That's a wonderful thing. So the other thing that Isaac Hunt was saying is that solar panels only last 15 years. They don't. These ones we've got last 30 years. Well, last even longer than 30 years, I imagine, but the performance warranty is 30 years. These batteries, by the way, they have a 10,000 cycle count. So assuming a worst case scenario, which is a daily cycle, so you charge it up, discharge completely, charge it up again. That's 27 years of use before they dip under 70% state of health. So batteries last ages. The solar panels last ages. And I'm just waiting really for a year of data before I work out the numbers properly on how much we've earned in a year and how long it's going to take to sort of pay back the investment. But based on what ChatGPT has said, because I've just relied on that for this, that says that we're looking at about a 6.3 year period before we've kind of paid back the value of the system, which was 18,990. Rip down the conservatory is a bit drastic. I think that I did joke about that when we first moved in because I despised this conservatory so much and it was falling apart with glass falling down and rotten wood and things like that. But we have sorted those bits out. It's quite a small place that we've got here. And this conservatory is a lovely space. It's lovelier when it's not being heated with expensive radiators, but still, it's a lovely space. It's quite bright, lovely view of the pond and everything. So we really like it. My wife more so, but we really like it. It feels kind of open and less claustrophobic maybe than the lounge, which is a little bit dark. So no, we're not going to rip down the conservatory, and it would be mad. There would be a cost to ripping down the conservatory. So if anything, it just makes sense just not to heat it. So we could insulate the roof of the conservatory, and we would be open to that, and we will get some quotes. Funnily enough, there was a company that put a letter through our door the other day saying about it. So I'm assuming that they've also done it for other people around here, because there are a couple of other conservatories down here. In fact, I think everyone's got a conservatory. And I can see that they're kind of opaque at the top, so I imagine they've been insulated. Probably going to be about 2,500, I reckon, to insulate the roof of this conservatory. So yeah, you could argue, is that worth it? I mean, obviously, it's still not going to be that efficient, because the glass would probably need replacing as well, and getting triple glazing or something like that. So I don't know. We'll look into it. A lot of other people said, why don't you heat up the radiators really high during the night when it's cheap, and then you just let the warmth kind of radiate a little bit, and it should help. And that's a good option, and we have actually been doing it in the lounge, but we can't do it many places. And I'll tell you why. We obviously don't want to do it in the bedrooms, because then people aren't going to be able to sleep, obviously. So my wife doesn't want me to do it in the hallway, because she's worried that the heat, if we set it to like 28, something quite mad like that, then the heat might kind of radiate to the bedroom door a little bit, and then maybe that would heat her up too much, because she hates the heat during the night. So that's not really an option. In the kitchen, the dog sleeps next to the radiator, so that's not an option. So really, the only place to do it is a lounge, and we don't actually use the lounge that much. So it's not really an option for us, sadly. Another question, get more batteries. We were quoted about £8,000 to double the capacity, so that's not going to happen. That's just crazy. Use the log burner. There we go, that's another one. And no, not doing that again. I'm certainly not doing that again. The last time we did it Christmas, not last year, the year before, and smoke started coming out of the log burner, and it filled the house, and it took ages to get rid of the smell, and it's disgusting. And in fact, it was so bad that the vacuum cleaner was smelling of soot for months. I'm not doing that again. If we spent more time in the lounge, then it would be quite cozy, obviously having a fire going. I mean, I do like a log burner and everything, but there's the health issue, obviously. Even if the door is closed, you still breathe in particulates. And I kind of feel like just that means that it heats up that room, and then the rest of the house feels a bit colder, maybe. So I don't know. And because we don't spend enough time in the lounge, I don't think there would be very much benefit to doing that. So that's not going to happen. I'm not going to do the log burner. When I mentioned this to people in the comments, when all the smoke came out, people said, well, you should have got it cleaned. We did get it cleaned. That was only the second time using it after we had the chimney sweep. So that wasn't the issue. It's a bit rusted. The top plate, I don't know the technical terms, the top plate was a bit rusted. Perhaps that let out the smoke, but also I think just the atmospherics on that day just made it not ideal. I think maybe it was a very still day, and I don't know. It was a bit misty. I don't want to go through all that crap all over again. Don't do it. Use a diesel heater. No, I don't want to burn fossil fuels. I'm sorry. Change to Octopus Cosy. That's a good option, right? Okay, so this is a tariff that you can get. We're currently on the Intelligent Octopus Go tariff, which is very good if you drive an EV like we do. But there is a tariff called Octopus Cosy. You get a day rate, for us anyway, you get a day rate of 29.07 pence per kilowatt hour. And then you get a cozy rate, and that's from 4 to 7 in the morning, 1 to 4 in the afternoon, and then 10 to midnight. And those times are 14.26 pence per kilowatt hour. And then there's a peak rate between 4 and 7 of 43.61 pence per kilowatt hour. So the idea is you've got electric radiators, or maybe if you, what else is it good for? Storage heaters, I suppose. Heat pumps, you might want to do a heat pump like this as well. Then you would set it for those cozy rates. I did loads of calculation here, but I'm not going to go into it because it will bore you to death. Long story short, if we change from Intelligent Octopus Go to Cozy, moving all of the heating slots to those cozy ones, then there would be a saving of £132.93 based on that January. How well would it work in this house? Is it insulated well enough? I don't know. I don't know whether we would start feeling a bit cold between every slot. So perhaps it's worth a try, and we could always switch it back when we hit spring. But I do like the way Intelligent Octopus Go works. And also we've got an issue with the Zappi at the moment, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. Firstly, Intelligent Octopus Go, just so you know, it's a tariff where whenever you plug the car in, it assigns you cheap slots. These cheap slots are the same as the slots you get at night. So for us, 7 pence per kilowatt hour. And that can happen when you plug in the car. It can happen a few minutes later, and it might start charging, which usually just tends to happen really if it's windy. Because if it's windy, then there's more renewables on the grid, it's cheaper, cleaner, all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. And then you tend to get the car charging then. And when the car is charging, the house is being powered at the cheap rate as well. So it does mean, in theory, although Octopus probably wouldn't want you to do this, but still, in theory, you could then charge up the battery at the same time as the car. So even in the middle of the day. I haven't done this, and the reason is, there must be some issue with the CT clamps. CT clamps are the things that sense the electricity use that connects to the Zappi. There must be an issue with it because I get something called a G100 error. If I try charging the car at the same time as charging the battery, or even if the radiators are all going, then it does this G100 error, and then you get kind of locked out. You have to reset it, and then if you do that 3 times in a month, then you get locked out, and you've got to ask My Energy, who make the Zappi, ask them to unlock it. So it could be CT clamps in the wrong place, or I don't think they are, to be honest, because it seems to be sensing the electricity correctly, but it must think that we are exceeding or about to exceed our 100 amp fuse. I think that's why it does it, even though it should actually dynamically reduce the amount the car is charging, so you don't get that error. Now, conveniently, I can actually show you this error. There we go, so G100 limit exceeded, resets remaining 3, press and hold plus to clear, so you have to do that. So as I said, I think it's probably an issue with the CT clamps. There's a CT clamp there. In theory, that should be in the right place, I think. But I've been faffing around putting this in different places, putting it upside down or blah, blah, blah. So I think it's fine where it is. It seems okay anyway. If I go to the Zappi app, it kind of pretty much marries up with what the Alpha app says in terms of use. So I don't know what's going on there, and it's something I have to sort out. And to be honest, it's been going on for a while, and I've just been too busy / lazy to sort it out. So my point is, if we were to do Octopus Cosy and you've got those 3 cozy slots, we would be charging the car inside one of those slots. But then if we've got all the heating going at the same time as charging the car, then I'll just end up getting this error. So I need to sort out this error before I do anything else. And perhaps I'll do a video just about that. I don't know. Right, well that's it. So I'm going to put on screen the profit and loss we've made for each month so far from April to January. Obviously you can see that through the summer months we were doing okay. Now overall, of course, the picture doesn't look very good because winter costs a fortune because of our electric radiators, obviously. But are we better off with the solar panels and the batteries? That's the big question, and it's one that I can't answer just yet. I put all of the info, I exported all of the spreadsheets out of the Alpha app, and I put it all into ChatGPT, which I'm relying on a lot these days, to try and get it to pass all of the data and all that. And I think ChatGPT's made a few errors. So I'm not going to give you that information until I know that that's correct. And I'll probably wait anyway until the end of a year. So after we've had the system for a whole year, then I'll be in a good place to be able to tell you whether it's saved us money. It has saved us money. We have made a profit. There is a return on the investment, but I'll give you that when I've worked out the details. By the way, the Alpha app should tell us the profit we've made, or our earnings, or at least our savings, or whatever. But it says something like £3,000 at the moment, and that's not right because, as I've moaned about several times before, the Alpha app is incorrect here. But Alpha have promised a fix, so hopefully that'll happen soon, before the year anniversary, because I would like to do sort of a roundup and a review of the Alpha system and just how it's all been for us. So for us, there's definitely been a benefit in that it has saved us a lot of money on our bills. So it's been great, and I'm just can't wait for the sun to come out and actually, get this working again to its full potential. Such a shame that we can't generate electricity from rain. I appreciate this is the worst time of the year to think about it. And January is famously an awful month just after Christmas. But if you are interested in getting solar panels and batteries, then talk to Heatable. Use my codes below. You can use Mr. EV 150 to get £150 off a solar installation and £75 off a battery installation using Mr. EV 75. I've had a lovely experience with Heatable, and everyone that I talk to seems to have a lovely experience with them as well. So it's not just me being a shill, honest. So there we go, a bit of a mammoth video, isn't it? Thank you very much for watching this video. Please press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of other videos. And I'll be back very soon. Bye for now. A whipping at the eyes, an undertow at the ankles. Yes, yes.